next step that we'll be doing is a very important one. We are going to create the application service. We've already discussed application services in the previous module. They will be exposing logic to the client, so the Angular application. In other words, it will contain the actual logic for an application invoked from the client. Communication from the client to the server and vice versa over the API will happen, of course, using JSON, and it's vital that we only transmit the data that's actually required. For that reason, we'll create a DTO, so a data transfer object that's specific to the operation at hand. Here in the snippet on the slide, you can see a class for the createPersonInput DTO, which will be used to capture the information when we create a new person instance. You'll see in the demo that the convention of ASP.NET 0 is that DTOs, as well as the application services, should be placed in the application shared project. In our application, we're going to create just an application service. See this as the entry point really on your server side. They shouldn't contain any complex logic. If you have complex domain logic and business rules, they should be actually placed inside the domain layer and domain services. To keep things simple here, we're not going to be adding any domain services in the demo. Through the application service, the presentation logic remains nicely separated from the real actual domain logic, making it possible to test your application domain in isolation properly. Application services in ASP.NET 0 are implemented as classes which implement an interface called iApplicationService. That's probably a good name for this interface, isn't it? In fact, you will typically don't implement this interface directly on your application service classes. Instead, you should create yourself an interface that describes the functionality of your application service. In this case, this will be iPersonAppService. In the interface declaration, we'll have a method called createPerson. Now you may be wondering, why do we need this interface really? Well, that's because of the fact that all services will be managed through dependency injection. It's important to note the naming. That's important here. ASP.NET 0 will register services and other types automatically based on convention. Dependency injection registrations with the container are done in a transient way.